On Wednesday morning, November 4th of 2020, I started my winter snowbird trip. Destination, Mesa, Arizona. There had already been some nights in western Pennsylvania where the temperatures were nearing freezing, so it was time to head to warmer weather. And I timed my departure to ensure that I could vote in the election the day before, so everything was green-lighted for my departure. The overall plan was to meet up with some friends who lived near St. Louis, then continue traveling together to Arizona to arrive at our winter RV park by December the 1st. So why don't you sit back and come along for the ride? I've done the drive to St. Louis on previous snowbird trips. I drive about 365 miles the first day and spend the night in a Cabela's parking lot just outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. The second day is about 240 miles to my friend's house. After a couple of days making final preparations for departure, we got on the road. The plan was to take advantage of the weather and travel about 4 full days to get us into Arizona, then spend the rest of the month touring around the desert Southwest until we check into our winter home on December the 1st. So the first day was about 310 miles to Coach Light Campground in Carthage, Missouri, just outside of Joplin. The second day was about 295 miles to Wanderlust Crossings RV Park in Weatherford, Oklahoma. The third day was about 300 miles through the northern panhandle of Texas to Travelers World RV Park in Clovis, New Mexico. It's hard to see, but that yellow sign on the right marks the border into New Mexico. The fourth day was about 290 miles to Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's worth noting that, up until this point, we didn't book any of our campgrounds in advance. We called ahead or just pulled in on the day of our arrival. This worked fine for the first 3 nights of the trip. However, for this fourth day, we were intending to stop at a park in Alamogordo, New Mexico. But when we arrived, they informed us that they were booked for the night. A quick call around to some other parks in the area revealed that they too were booked for the night. So we quickly pivoted and secured a reservation further down the road in Las Cruces. After 4 straight days of 300 miles per day, Thursday was relatively short at only 225 miles. And this day brought us into Arizona. We checked into the Butterfield RV Resort in Benson. While in Benson, our tourist activities got underway. We took a side trip to Tombstone. We toured the town and the nearby Boot Hill Graveyard. After 3 nights in Benson, we pulled out and headed just 56 miles down the road to Desert Trails RV Park just outside of Tucson. While we were in Tucson, we visited Saguaro National Park and toured the Pima Air and Space Museum. The Desert Trails RV Park gets its name because there is direct access to lots of desert hiking trails right out the back gate of the park. I took advantage and went on my first hike of the season with a 2.7-mile hike. After 2 nights at Desert Trails, we headed out for 130 miles to Gila Bend, Arizona. We stayed in Gila Bend for 3 nights and used this as a home base to drive south and visit Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument. We also stopped at a fun roadside gas station in Y, Arizona, along the way. After Gila Bend, we drove 111 miles to Yuma and stayed at Westbound RV Resort. While in Yuma, we visited the old Yuma Territorial Prison. And we took a long day trip to San Diego. We went to Coronado Island and toured the historic Del Coronado Hotel. After 4 nights in Yuma, we departed and headed north on Arizona 95 for 80 miles to do some dry camping in one of the BLM dispersed camping areas near Quartzite. Before heading to our desert campsite, we stopped at the RV pit stop in Quartzite. and filled up with propane and fresh water to see us through for a week in the desert. Then we continued north on Arizona 95 and selected a campsite off of Plumosa Road. While we were in Quartzite, we took a side trip north to see the Parker Dam and the London Bridge in Lake Havasu. After a week in Quartzite, we pulled out for the final leg of the trip, 158 miles to Mesa's Spirit RV Resort in Mesa. But we had one final bit of business to do before we arrived in Mesa. We stopped at a Blue Beacon truck wash and got 3 weeks worth of road grime and desert dust washed off of the rigs. We are now settled into our winter home for the next couple of months. I hope you enjoyed coming along on our travel adventures. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.